Today I spoke with the former ambassador to the Vatican, Joe Donnelly, as Trump's war with the Vatican continues at fever pitch and the blowback is continuing on an international scale. Donnelly is a former congressman and senator. He's not a talking head. This is the man whose entire career was built on keeping the president and the Pope from a total diplomatic meltdown. And right now, that firewall is gone. The president is at war with Pope Leo, and the man who once lived in the room where it happened is about to drop the hammer. This week has been eventful. Pope Leo has been in the news a few times, starting with Donald Trump's Truth Social post, where he basically attacked the Pope for his position on Iran. Can you tell us about that? And then I'd love your personal perspective, how it made you feel.
It is unusual to say the least, right? I laughed. We didn't agree on everything, but the U.S. and the Vatican, as it is in every ambassadorial relationship, but most of those things were worked out together quietly to make sure that there was no rupture in the relationship and that we could do things like bring Ukrainian children home, make sure that ties with Europe were stronger and better. This was completely different. That what the president seems angry about is he's mad at Leo for Leo doing Leo's job, in effect. And Leo's job is not to. Leo deals with hundreds of countries around the world. He's the face of the Catholic Church. He's the face of Christ to all Catholics, and I think the operative model almost is, for want of a better way to put it, Matthew 25, which is, whatever you do for the least of us, you do for me. That was what Jesus said. And so look out for the poor. Take care of those who are challenged. I remember with Francis, when he walked into a room, he just had this amazing instinct that he could find whoever was in need, whoever was struggling that day, and go up to them and talk to them and laugh with them and boost their spirit.
Your role as former ambassador, it's really your job to sort of set up the relationship between the Pope and the president. Wouldn't you say that's true?
Yes, it is. The message as you head off is, make sure this all works great. So it's like, thanks. Here's the keys. Go get them. I was very blessed. I had a wonderful relationship with Pope Francis. New Pope Leo, as Robert Prevost, the cardinal, in his role. He was in a little bit different role. He wasn't so much state to state. He was more internally Vatican focused. And so most of my dealing was with Francis, but it was also with another cardinal, Cardinal Matteo Zuppi. We worked nonstop together to bring the Ukrainian children home from Russia. Also on how can we help increase peace around the world.
You have had an illustrious career, former congressman, former senator, huge fan of yours. You're an ambassador. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh, I come from parents who never went to college. My brother was the first one in our family to ever go, and just a working class Irish Catholic family that my grandparents came. I'm second generation, and so I was very blessed that I had these opportunities, and was fortunate enough to be elected a few times, and then to serve at the Vatican Embassy for the Holy See, and to work with some of the most amazing people you'd ever want to meet.
Do you have a message for Donald Trump?
Leo is your friend. He's not your enemy. That would be the message, that when you listen to what he's telling you, what he's saying, when you listen to advice, it's probably a good thing. For instance, when you look at Iran, if you had listened to folks like Marco Rubio, who said this is a bad idea, John Radcliffe, CIA director, this is a bad idea, Benjamin Netanyahu, who's been trying to sell this to presidents for the last 40 years, and they all said, this is not good. Listen to others. When you listen to others, you get collective wisdom of 10 instead of just your own.
None of this is normal. Ambassador Donnelly is saying that the president is mad at the Pope for doing his job. So what happens when that relationship breaks, not privately, but in the open? Well, we asked him what this actually does to our international allies and to Catholics here at home? Don't miss his answer.
When Leo makes these comments are about, look, we have to look out for everybody. And President Trump, for whatever reason, is like, well, you don't have the right to tell the United States what to do. Well, Leo, he's not telling anybody what to do. He's saying, here's the proper way to do it. Here's the proper way to look at things. And so if I had been advising President Trump, I would have said picking a fight with the Pope is probably not high on the dance card of things to do today.
I had to bring up the fact that there is a growing movement right now to award Pope Leo the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm pretty sure that would send Trump over the edge.
There are some people who are lobbying Pope Leo to get the Nobel Peace Prize, and I think it's safe to say some of them just want him to get it to get under Donald Trump's skin. I'm curious what your perspective on that would be.
Well, I think he's deserving. I don't think of it in terms of Donald Trump. I think of it in terms of Pope Leo and what he's trying to achieve. And he's trying to achieve peace around the world. He wants this Iran war to end, to make it so that everybody is safe. When President Trump says, well, Leo wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon, it's like, of course he doesn't. That's whatever.
Absolutely.
Leo would ban all nuclear weapons tomorrow if he could. What he's trying to do is make sure that thousands of Iranian citizens aren't killed, that our troops aren't killed, our brave men and women, and trying to help us get to a conclusion on this.
This next part was my favorite part of the interview. Ambassador Donnelly addresses MAGA Catholics, who perhaps for the first time are starting to see Trump for who he actually is. It's a masterclass in dignity, and the contrast alone tells you exactly who is losing the fight.
If you had a message to MAGA Catholics right now, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that, we're all God's children. From the immigrant who's struggling the most to the person who lives in the biggest, richest house in the world. We're all God's children. And that Pope Leo's job is probably the person in the biggest, richest house doesn't need it as much as maybe the person who's struggling the most. But that our Catholic faith says to us that our job is to try to help everybody reach the kingdom of God. And so when Leo talks about these things, he does it because that's what St. Augustine has taught him. That's what the church has taught him. And he's just trying to make it so that in a positive way, that every American has a better life, not only everybody else around the world, and that Leo's looking for the good in people.
Listen to this next part. Cosima asks Ambassador Donnelly directly what his message is to Pope Leo. This is where it gets personal.
I'm wondering, if you had a message for Pope Leo right now on behalf of Americans, what would you tell him?
I'd tell him we love you, we're proud of you. Being from Indiana, right near the south side of Chicago, the whole neighborhood is proud of you. And you have a wisdom of doing your job. And the President of the United States has a job to do as well. And we should try to support each other in that, in terms of trying to do the right policies. And if it's wrong, you call it out. And if it's wrong in the views of the United States, they call it out. But, the things you focus on, Leo, are the things that Jesus focused on. And that's your job.
Something we haven't heard much is how badly does this set us back, right? Like, what are the consequences to our European allies? How does it affect Catholics here at home? Having the president pick a fight with someone who represents
Right.
the faith of, I think it's 30 million Americans. What does that say?
Well, there's been challenges with our European allies for at least probably the last year, when the president has criticized them on a constant basis. And the old story, you catch a lot more with honey than with vinegar. We had extraordinarily good relations with all of our European allies. They, in fact, when I was the ambassador of the Vatican, so many of them were like, so what are we going to do together? I mean, that was the operative narrative, was when we go together, and 2 + 2 = 8. When you get everybody together, it works. And so constant criticism doesn't help. Trying to solve problems is what we try to do. And I think in the long term, everybody looks at this as, this is a moment, and this moment too shall pass.
I asked Ambassador Donnelly about the Truth Social post seen around the world. The image with Trump's hand outstretched and glowing, with him dressed like Jesus. To me, it was just a line you don't cross.
The picture depicting Donald Trump as Jesus that got the news. Then yesterday, I shall not lie, but he had no issue saying that it was actually him as a doctor and instead of Jesus. I was just curious your perspective.
I think the doctor deal was the old, if I have a bridge you want to buy, if you're interested. That doesn't help. So many people consider that blasphemous, sacrilegious, and somebody needs to tell the president, we know you have these great relationships with your friends, your groups, all of these things. The American people look to you as the president. Act like the president.
This isn't politics as usual. This is the man who is in the room telling you that the room is on fire. And the pattern's clear. The warning's loud. The only question is, are we all listening?